Open your fridge and look at that bottle of barbecue sauce sitting on the door shelf. The label probably sounds comforting. Secret family recipe, slow smoked flavor, pitmaster approved. It creates the image of an old backyard smoker and a grandfather stirring a pot behind a small restaurant somewhere in Texas. But when you flip the bottle around, the story changes. Many of those sauces begin with high fructose corn syrup, artificial smoke, and a long list of industrial ingredients. Today, we are not simply ranking barbecue sauces, we are decoding them. Because once you start reading labels, a pattern appears. Most barbecue sauces on supermarket shelves fall into just a few clear categories. Some are designed mainly to deliver extremely sweet candy-like flavor. Others are actually built to complement real smoked meat. In this video, we will break down the sauces you should avoid and the ones that truly belong on your grill. And if you remember only one villain from this entire list, make it this one: candy barbecue sauce. This is the style that slowly turned American barbecue into dessert. Pick up almost any popular original barbecue sauce from a supermarket shelf. Now look at the ingredients. If the first line says high fructose corn syrup, and the next few ingredients are simply more forms of sugar, corn syrup, sugar, brown sugar, then you are not holding barbecue sauce. You are holding something closer to a liquid candy bar. The most famous example is Sweet Baby Ray's Original. This sauce exploded from a small Chicago product into one of the most dominant barbecue sauces in the United States. Today, stores like Costco sell giant twin packs because it has become the default choice for backyard cookouts. Taste alone explains why it spread so quickly. It is thick, glossy, and instantly hits your tongue with sweetness, smoke, and tang. For the first few seconds, it feels perfect. But once you examine the ingredient label, you notice the foundation: high fructose corn syrup, then regular corn syrup. Only later do you finally reach tomato and spices. 2 tablespoons of this sauce contain roughly 17 grams of sugar. That is close to the amount of sugar in 4 Oreo cookies, and almost nobody stops at 2 tablespoons when glazing ribs. But Sweet Baby Ray's is not the only brand built this way. KC Masterpiece follows the same formula. The name sounds like a trophy-winning competition sauce, yet the ingredient list reads more like a soda fountain recipe. High fructose corn syrup, sugar, molasses, and stabilizers designed to keep the bottle perfectly thick and shelf-stable. The result is barbecue flavor engineered almost entirely around sweetness rather than real smoked meat. Here is why this matters once the sauce actually touches the meat. When you brush ribs or chicken with candy-style barbecue sauce, the first bite feels incredible. Your brain lights up immediately. Sweet, smoky, sticky, everything hits at once, and for a moment you think this must be perfect barbecue. But by the third or fourth bite, something changes. Every bite tastes exactly the same, just sweet and sticky. The deeper flavors of the meat disappear. All the effort you put into seasoning the meat, choosing the rub, and slowly smoking it for hours gets buried under a thick blanket of sugar. It is almost like spending an entire day smoking a beautiful brisket and then pouring pancake syrup all over it before serving. Another problem appears once the meat hits the grill. Real barbecue sauce that contains balanced sugar and vinegar slowly caramelizes as it cooks. It develops a rich, dark glaze that adds flavor without overpowering the meat. But candy-style barbecue sauce behaves differently. Because corn syrup sits at the top of the ingredient list, the sauce wants to burn instead of caramelize. Dark, bitter spots appear on the meat long before the chicken or ribs are fully cooked. Suddenly, you are stuck choosing between two bad options. Either you apply less sauce and lose flavor, or you leave the sauce on and end up with charred, bitter patches. To be fair, these sauces are not completely useless. If you are throwing frozen meatballs into a slow cooker for a quick family snack, a sweet sauce like this can work fine. But it is important to recognize what it really is. Real barbecue sauce uses sugar or molasses as supporting ingredients. Candy barbecue sauce turns sugar into the entire business model. The second fake barbecue category is a little more subtle. This is fake smoke in a bottle. These sauces love big, bold words on the front label: hickory smoke, mesquite flavor, smokehouse barbecue. But when you read the ingredient list on the back, the magic usually comes from something called smoke flavor or natural smoke flavor. often combined with caramel color to create that deep, dark barbecue appearance. Liquid smoke itself is created by burning wood and capturing the smoke in condensed liquid form. In small homemade recipes, it can sometimes be used as a shortcut. But in large-scale commercial sauces, it often becomes the entire personality of the product. One of the most recognizable examples of this style is Kraft Original Barbecue Sauce. At first glance, the ingredient list looks fairly normal. You will see tomato concentrate, vinegar, and sugar, which are common elements in many barbecue sauces. But the strong, smoky aroma that hits your nose the moment you open the bottle does not come from hours in a smoker. It comes from liquid smoke. That deep, dark mahogany color that makes your grilled chicken look competition ready also does not come from slow caramelization on a grill. Most of the time, it comes from caramel color added during manufacturing. On paper, liquid smoke sounds clever. After all, it technically comes from real wood smoke that has been condensed and captured. But once it becomes a major ingredient in mass-produced sauce, the flavor often becomes blunt and artificial. Instead of layering smoke flavor on top of real grilled meat, it replaces the complexity with a single, loud note. And once you taste it, the difference becomes obvious. Real smoked meat has depth. The outside bark is stronger and smokier while the inside meat remains softer and more delicate. But when sauce relies heavily on bottled smoke flavor, the entire bite tastes the same from edge to center. Even if that chicken breast barely touched a grill, the sauce shouts smoke flavor at full volume. When manufacturers rely on smoke flavor to do all the heavy lifting, the spice blend often becomes lazy as well. Instead of distinct ingredients like chili powder, black pepper, garlic, and onion, you will often see vague labels such as spices or natural flavor. That means the flavor profile is simplified and standardized rather than carefully built. If you do not own a smoker and you are simply adding flavor to a quick weeknight meal, a little liquid smoke can be acceptable. But when it comes to real barbecue, fake smoke in a bottle often behaves like perfume sprayed on meat. Instead of highlighting the work done by the grill, it covers it up. When smoke flavor and caramel color appear near the top of the ingredient list, while the spices remain vague and minimal, you are usually tasting industrial flavoring rather than real barbecue. The third fake barbecue category does not attack your taste buds first. It targets your emotions. This is the world of fake honey sauces and nostalgic family recipe branding. You know the style immediately when you see it on the shelf. The label is warm and rustic. Maybe there is a drawing of a barn or an old wooden table. Sometimes there is a smiling grandfather in an apron. Other times, the bottle is covered with honeycombs and buzzing bees, suggesting the sauce is filled with rich, natural honey. The front label might say something like Grandpa's Secret Recipe or Since 19, something written in a soft handwritten font. The goal is simple: make the sauce feel personal, traditional, and homemade. But once again, the truth appears when you turn the bottle around. Take Great Value Honey Barbecue Sauce as an example. The front of the bottle emphasizes honey and backyard barbecue flavor. But the ingredient list begins with high fructose corn syrup followed by tomato puree and vinegar. Only much further down the list do you finally see honey. And even then, it appears in very small amounts. In many cases, the label states that the sauce contains less than 2% honey. The bees on the label are doing far more work than the honey inside the bottle. Another brand that plays a similar game is Kinder Honey Barbecue Sauce. Kinder is a respected family barbecue brand, and the word honey appears clearly in the name, but once again, the sweetness inside the bottle is dominated by sugar and other sweeteners. Honey functions more like a flavor accent rather than the foundation of the sauce. On the shelf, these bottles appear to be honey-based barbecue sauces, but the ingredient list reveals that they are mostly standard sweet barbecue sauces with a small hint of honey added for marketing appeal. Another version of this emotional marketing appears in the so-called family recipe sauces. These bottles lean heavily on stories of tradition and heritage. You might see labels that promise a secret recipe passed down for generations. Brands like Clay's Original Barbecue Sauce promote the idea of a recipe that has existed for more than 100 years. Others, such as Grandpa's Original Barbecue Sauce, describe their product as a classic family formula finally bottled so everyone can enjoy it. The storytelling is powerful. Images of old cookouts, family gatherings, and recipes protected by grandparents create a strong emotional connection. But the problem is not that these sauces are automatically bad. The real issue is that the story on the front of the bottle often does more work than the ingredient list on the back. In the modern food industry, many sauces with nostalgic labels are produced by the same large contract manufacturers that produce dozens of other sweet sauces. Different brand names, different packaging, but often the same sugar, heavy base formula. Once you taste these sauces, a pattern begins to appear. Real honey used in cooking creates a gentle floral sweetness with a smooth, rounded finish. But sauces that rely mainly on corn syrup and sugar tend to taste like honey-flavored candy. The sweetness feels loud, flat, and slightly artificial, especially when the sauce is heated on a grill. On the grill, these honey and family recipe sauces behave almost exactly like candy-style barbecue sauce. The sugar on the surface of the meat caramelizes quickly and then crosses the line into burning. Instead of a rich glaze, you end up fighting against bitter black spots forming on the meat. So you find yourself constantly watching the grill, trying to keep that so-called secret family glaze from turning into a burnt crust. There is nothing wrong with nostalgia. Your grandfather may very well have made an incredible homemade barbecue sauce, but chances are he did not start his recipe with high fructose corn syrup or treat honey and spices like minor background ingredients. So here is the simple rule. If the front label proudly shouts honey or grandpa's original recipe, but the ingredient list begins with corn syrup and generic sugars, while honey appears near the bottom, you are not looking at a treasured family recipe. You are looking at clever marketing designed to tap into your memories. Now that we have seen the sauces that often miss the mark, it is time to talk about the ones that actually respect real barbecue. These sauces follow a very different philosophy. Instead of overwhelming the meat with sugar, they aim to balance sweetness, acidity, spice, and smoke. A great example of this approach is Stubbs' original barbecue sauce. Stubbs was created by Christopher B. Stubblefield, a Texas pitmaster who built his reputation serving slow-smoked meat in his Austin restaurant. His sauce reflects the style of Texas barbecue where the meat itself remains the star of the plate. When you read the ingredient list, you see tomato vinegar, brown sugar, and molasses working together with a clear blend of spices. Black pepper, garlic, onion, and chili powder are not hidden behind vague labels. They are part of the structure of the sauce. The sweetness is present, but it does not dominate the entire flavor profile. When this sauce hits the grill, it behaves very differently from candy-style barbecue sauces. Instead of instantly burning it, slowly caramelizes, creating a thin, flavorful glaze that hugs the meat. Each bite still allows you to taste the smoke from the grill and the seasoning in the rub. Another sauce that shows a similar respect for balance is Lily's Q Smoky Barbecue Sauce. This sauce takes inspiration from Memphis-style barbecue, where tomato vinegar, molasses, and spices create a deeper layered flavor. Instead of blasting your tongue with sugar, the sauce builds complexity. You taste a touch of sweetness followed by tangy vinegar and gentle smoke. Because the sauce is not overloaded with corn syrup, it also performs better when heated. It thickens and caramelizes without turning bitter. That difference may sound small, but once you taste meat glazed with a balanced sauce, the contrast becomes obvious. Suddenly, the barbecue sauce feels like a partner to the meat rather than a sugary blanket covering it. Another sauce that often surprises people once they read the label carefully is Kinder Original Barbecue Sauce. Kinder has built its reputation around seasoning blends and grilling products, and their original barbecue sauce follows a more balanced formula than many mass-market bottles. Instead of leaning heavily on high fructose corn syrup, the sauce blends tomato puree, vinegar, brown sugar, and molasses with a noticeable mix of spices. The result is a flavor that feels fuller and more rounded rather than simply sweet. When brushed onto grilled chicken or ribs, the sauce forms a glossy coating that slowly caramelizes instead of instantly burning. You still get sweetness, but it arrives alongside tang and spice rather than dominating the entire bite. Another interesting bottle that moves in a more traditional direction is Rufus Teague's Made Some Sauce. Even the name suggests something slightly different from typical supermarket barbecue sauces. The flavor profile leans toward a Kansas City style balance, where molasses, tomato vinegar, and spices all play important roles. Instead of tasting like liquid candy, the sauce delivers layers of flavor that change as you keep eating. A touch of sweetness appears first, followed by a deeper smoky note and then a gentle kick of spice. Because the sugar level is more controlled, the sauce also behaves better on the grill. It thickens and darkens gradually, allowing the meat to develop a proper glaze without the burnt bitterness that often comes from corn syrup heavy sauces. Once you start paying attention to ingredient lists, you begin to notice how these better sauces follow a similar pattern. Real spices appear clearly. Molasses or brown sugar replace the heavy use of corn syrup, and vinegar adds brightness that cuts through the richness of smoked meat. At the end of the day, barbecue sauce is one of the easiest places in your kitchen to be misled by marketing. The front of the bottle may promise pitmaster quality, secret family recipes, honey sweetness, and authentic smokehouse flavor. But the truth is almost always written quietly on the ingredient list. If the first ingredients are corn syrup and multiple forms of sugar, you are probably looking at candy-style barbecue sauce. If smoke flavor and caramel color appear high on the list while the spice blend remains vague, the smoky flavor may be coming from a bottle rather than a smoker. If the label celebrates honey or a grandfather's secret recipe, but those ingredients barely appear in the formula, the story may be doing more work than the sauce itself. And if the bottle promises zero sugar, yet relies heavily on artificial sweeteners and thickening gums, you may be looking at a product engineered more like a laboratory experiment than a traditional sauce. Real barbecue sauce usually looks much simpler. Tomato vinegar, sugar, or molasses, and a clear mix of spices. Sometimes even vegetables or natural ingredients that create body and flavor. These sauces do not try to hide the meat. They enhance it. They caramelize slowly on the grill. They add tang, sweetness, and spice without overwhelming the smoke and seasoning that make barbecue special in the first place. The next time you walk down the barbecue sauce aisle, take a few seconds to flip the bottle over. That small habit can tell you far more than the bold promises printed on the front. Because the difference between real barbecue sauce and clever marketing is often just a few lines on the label.